I think AI is also going to take a lot of jobs away, and people will have to go into trades at some point if they want to be sure that they have a job for the rest of their lives. We cannot take any of this away from us. Once you learn a trade, you learn a trade. You can take it anywhere, in the woods if you want. I'm teaching methods that are so traditional that you do not need a lot of equipment. You can have a candle and still be stitching.
Welcome to the Trades Show. I'm your host, Briana Ottoboni. This season, we're on location with artisans in San Francisco. In the epicenter of AI, speed, and innovation, we're exploring a return to slow, a return to craftsmanship, a return to what makes us human, our ability to make with our hands and our hearts, not just our heads. Thank you for being here. Hello. Welcome back to the Trades Show. Today's guest is Béatrice Amblard. She is an incredible leather artisan. She's actually the only Hermès-trained leather artisan in the US who's operating under her own label. She is the founder of April in Paris, which is a gorgeous bespoke leather accessories brand and storefront here in San Francisco. And she's also the founder of Heirloom Leathercraft, which is a working atelier. And they have classes and artisan training programs, truly building the next generation of leather artisans right here in the city. We talk a little bit about how the leather industry has changed throughout the course of her career, and really what working at the forefront of such a luxury brand like Hermès taught her as an artisan. And we end with a very hopeful take on how technology can support artisanship and craft work, which is a topic that I could talk about for hours. So I can't wait for you to listen. And without further ado, let's get into it. Well, hello. Welcome to the Trades Show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for having me in your space. So I always start with asking the same two questions. And the first is, how would you describe your craft? So if someone asked you what you did, what would you say to them?
I would describe it by saying we pay very close attention to every details. And we really do one of a kind, unique leather product. Everything is handmade, and it's this old trade, traditional methods that we're using still. All the hand stitching, hand cutting, edge finishing, all of that is part of the trade and the craft that we're doing today.
Beautiful. And bring us back a little bit. Tell us how you got here and found leather to begin with.
I hope you have a lot of time.
Oh, yeah.
So I started leatherwork when I was 16 in Paris. I went to a professional school to learn the trade. After 2 years, I graduated the program and decided that if I wasn't going to go work for Hermès, then I was not going to be in this trade.
Why Hermès at that time?
Because Hermès was the best for this type of work. There was no one else doing what they were doing. There were small artisans here and there, but really, if that was something I wanted to do for the rest of my life, this was really the company where I would learn the best way possible to work with leather. So I interviewed with Hermès. They had openings. I was interviewed by 4 big men, and I was 18 and very impressionable. And ultimately, I got accepted, went through 6 months training. It was very frustrating because I'm left-handed. They had to train me fully with someone who was left-handed. And it didn't work out very well with her. So the first 6 months were a little bit intense. Anyway, I passed the test. I was there for 4 years. Decided to go on vacation in the US with a friend and thought, you know what? This is something I've always wanted to do. Since I was 10 years old, I told my mother I would move to the US. So first opportunity, I turned 21 in San Francisco and thought, you know, I really want to come back here to learn English. Went back to France after my trip and told Hermès, would you take me back if I take a leave of absence? for 6 months, and they said, we would, but we can't guarantee. And I said, you need to guarantee, because I don't want to come back to no work. Anyway, everything worked out really well. By the time, so I moved to LA for 6 months to learn English, or a little bit of it. By the time I was almost over with my 6 months, Hermès called me in the middle of the night and said, we have a position in San Francisco, would you like to come and work for us there? I was like, this is a dream come true. Went back to France, went through training, moved to the US, and 10 years later, I scratched my head and said, what am I going to do now? Do I want to stay with Hermès and do the same thing for the rest of my life? Or do I have a little more ambition and maybe start creating on my own? That's what I did in 1988. Started April in Paris. So it wasn't that simple, but in a nutshell. And 28 years later, still doing custom accessories, completely bespoke, one of a kind. But I also was pushed into teaching.
Just because so many people were asking you, right?
So many people were asking me. They kept coming in the store. This one guy came in every 3 months for 2 years, really pushed my buttons until I finally gave in. Ultimately, that was probably the best thing I could have done. Oh, I did, because 14 years later, the school is getting to a point where we're almost filling up every seats every day.
Yeah, you've trained over 1,000 people through your school, right?
Yes, we've had over 1,000 people come through.
Wow.
At different levels. Not everybody graduated the full program, which is 4 levels of 12 weeks, or 12 days now. But we've had 1,000 people interested in learning something about this craft. Pretty amazing.
Okay, I want to go back even before you started school to the moment where you really fell in love with leather. And you said that you originally wanted to do woodworking. But can you bring us back to that moment? I think leather is just such a sensory experience, and that's how you described it.
Yeah, so when I was 16, because I grew up with learning differences, the French system basically said there's nothing else we can do for you. So your only option is to go in the trades. I'm lucky that France has a really good trade system and trade schools. So we went to, with my mother, who found the school for me, we went to visit the school where I wanted to learn woodworking, because I started working with wood when I was 8 years old in my dad's garage and playing with it, and I really loved wood. So I went in for woodworking, but in that same school, they were training people for cooking, for upholstery making, for leatherworking. So we said, let's take a little tour of the school and see what's going on. When I walked in the leather classroom, all my senses got awakened. It's like I was feeling for the first time in my life. The benches were old wood. The floors were worn by thousands of students that had walked through there. The scent of leather and wax and probably glue as well, and all of this just brightened me up, and I fell in love with it. I said, this is what I want to do. Forget woodworking, I'll get back to that at some point. This is what I want to do.
Yes. There's this amazing book by Matthew Crawford called Shop Class as Soulcraft. I feel like you would love it, but he's a motorcycle mechanic, and he just talks about the sensory body of knowledge that exists in all of these trades. And we talk about knowledge work in all of these more white collar, sitting at a desk profession. It's just an entirely different set of knowledge, and it's one that really requires every part of your physical being, every sense that you have, and it just feels so much more tangible and human, really.
It's true. From the minute you look at a piece of leather and then you touch it and you smell it and you feel it, everything touches your senses, all of them at the same time. I don't think there are very many things like this in life that really can touch so much. And you feel alive when you touch like this, and when you're able to make something with it to the point where there are no limits to what your creative skill can be with this. When you've learned the right way, there's nothing better for me even after almost 5 decades. To be able to create something so tangible that you can look at, that your friends can appreciate, that people around you will compliment you on. How often do you have the situations, right?
Especially handmade things that I think they just have this very intangible human quality. It's almost like a different energy that kind of brings people to them.
It's completely different energy. You take a machine stitching versus a hand sewing piece, you won't feel the same thing. When you touch something, even with the imperfections of the pieces, when students are learning, of course there's some imperfection, and I tell them that's what makes the beauty of your piece. Perfection doesn't exist. We try to achieve it, and I tried this my entire life, not achieved it yet. But that's what makes this piece so incredible, is you can feel that someone touched it and put their heart into it, their talent, their energy. To me, it's wow. I'm still amazed by the whole concept of creating pieces by hand.
Yes, totally. And I feel like in your career, there have been so many changes in production, and we've really entered this era of mass production, and so many things have changed. I'm curious if you've seen any changes in the supply or the quality of leather as you've gone through your career?
Oh yes, I've seen a lot of changes. Yeah. When I started mass production, I'm not going to say what date because I've already said it anyway, but mass production wasn't such a big thing. There were bigger companies, and I'm not going to name any because I don't like to do that, but there were bigger companies that were doing production, but it wasn't like in the thousands and thousands. The company I worked for, I was lucky to be able to do one-of-a-kind piece, or if it's not one-of-a-kind, one piece at a time. There was no 15 or 20 of the same thing. So that was the time. Then it evolved where some companies decided that mass production and logos were going to take part of this luxury industry in a way that everybody can have it. So to me, that's the opposite of luxury. Luxury is quiet. Luxury is maybe not everybody can afford it, or you can spend your time saving a little bit to acquire a piece that means something to you, whether it's someone's making it or you purchased it from a source that you really appreciate. That's luxury. That's the uniqueness of each product. Even if they make more than one, because it doesn't always have to be one of a kind, but it's the uniqueness of the product. So, of course, things have evolved in suppliers because the more you need to produce, the more suppliers need to produce as well. So the quality of the leather goods, or the leathers, have changed. Also, many tanneries have disappeared. Yes. That comes with the fact that there are much more regulations that were there 50 years ago. So a lot of tanneries either sold out to a bigger company and they all regrouped under one roof. There are very few tanneries that are still owned by family members, for example. I happen to work with one of them. Yeah. That's why I work with them. I've been working with them for almost 30 years, is because it's still unique. It's still family owned. It's not owned by a big corporation. So all of that has evolved, where the leather quality is not as great, and it's harder to find now because there's so much. Also, a lot of it was sent overseas when they started to produce not in-house anymore. So yes, the industry has really changed. Yeah. And prioritizing logos and brands versus quality. So that's a big difference from when I started. But what the good thing is, a lot of companies are backtracking a little bit. They're really wanting to come back to that more unique approach to accessories. Accessories or anything in luxury, really, because you go from mass production to trying to scale back to creating unique product. It's not easy because now they don't have the artisans trained to do that.
Yes, we were talking about this.
So how do you get to that point? We've gone so far off on the opposite side of the spectrum where you needed thousands of employees to create a product. Now, several thousand product. Now you want to go back to one particular thing. It's taking a long time. We'll get there. But it's a positive outcome, I think. I think people are shying away a little bit from the more brand name companies to really want the experience of purchasing a product that has some heart, has a connection to them. Whether we make it for them and they get involved in the process. So I think we're almost coming back to what luxury was 30, 40 years ago. Full circle.
Yes, and it's such an ecosystem too. Like when I think about leather, it comes from animals and can be a byproduct of the meat industry. And I feel like in the US we've seen so much with factory farming that I'm sure has also changed the quality of leather. I talked to a butcher last season and I feel like she had a very similar approach of you can eat higher quality meat, you just eat less of it. It's a very different industry, but it's that same luxury feel of just curated, really high quality things. But there was so much infrastructure back then, like all of the tanneries that existed that supported. And so how do you think we can go back to that? What needs to happen either for those brands from your perspective or for just the way that we're building that infrastructure to allow us to go back in that direction?
I think it's a pretty complicated situation. It's complicated, yes, lots of pieces. I think you also have different kinds of customers. So you're going to have people that still want to get their mass-produced item because they can change it every 3 or 4 months. It goes thrown out into the garbage and waste field. And then you have the people that are really appreciating and understanding what it means to own one well-made piece and keep it for the rest of your life. A piece that you're going to pass on to your kids. So that is coming back because I see it. I see it in my clients. They're like, we don't care how much it costs. We just want a really good piece that's going to last. Okay, it's not for everybody. So we have to accommodate for both sides of the coin here. Changing the infrastructure of the meat industry, I think there are too many pieces of that puzzle. But if you have one farmer, for example, who's going to decide to grow these incredible cows on a limited field, and he's going to produce 30 a year, then that whole chain of existence here between the meat and the hides that come out of it will definitely be part of that other selection of people. So we can accommodate both, but they're two different situations. And so we'll have to figure out now the tanning industry in the US is practically gone. There are hardly any tanneries left in this country. There were about 10 of them when I started 30 years ago. So very different situation.
Yeah, it's so interesting to think about the different industries because there are similar trends happening between them of, if you think about food, just the farm-to-table industry, grass-fed beef, and there is this pendulum swinging back in the other direction. And it's interesting to think about that we were building for one type of customer and then switched to the totally opposite. And now, instead of going fully back, like what does it look like to build infrastructure for these different customer groups that we have to create potentially a more sustainable industry long term?
I mean, I think it's possible.
Yeah.
And I think they should really think about it because if we're talking about meat, yes, it's all part of that one ecosystem where you have the meat and you have the leather and everything else in between. So everything's used. It's a more eco-friendly situation in a way. Now, is it sustainable for one farmer to only produce 30 cows? Probably not. So it's finding the right balance between the two. But I think if the idea is there, that means it can happen. We've gone through so many different phases in the last 50 years that everything's possible. I want to stay hopeful that we can find alternatives for all the situations that could be for better places or better outcome.
Yeah, I love that perspective. And now, where do you see the highest concentration of suppliers or tanneries of leather that are still, or even leather artisans that are still producing that kind of luxury quality? Or does it even exist in one place anymore?
Not in one place, but I think Europe.
Yeah.
Not biased at all. France and Italy, okay, I'm going to say Italy and France are the two countries that are still producing the highest quality leather products in the world. You have Portugal. They use a lot of hides for shoes. That's most of their industry and has been for centuries. But the highest concentration of artisans, because they need to have people to produce these products, is France and Italy. Then you have Japan. Japan has some interesting designers, but it's a smaller percentage for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. You said that in France, I'm curious if they still have this. You talked about the trade school differentiation when you were in school growing up, that they do separate you at one point. But they also do have this like incredible infrastructure of how they're creating artisans in all of these different trades. First, does that still exist?
It does.
Yes.
And I think they're trying to revive that part of it. Not everyone can go to higher education. I grew up with dyslexia. I was not the only one. And yes, that trade school mentality, when I was growing up and when I went to school, had a very negative connotation. The stigma was really high. It meant you can't continue at school, you're not smart enough. So there was a lot of things associated with that. Yes, I suffered from that. Ultimately, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? I went into that trade wanting to prove that the trade system really works and that doesn't matter who you are, you can actually make whatever you want out of it. I didn't let the system dictate what I wanted to do. I brought in the possibilities to myself because of my goals and desires. I've never been without a job a day in my life. I have worked my entire life. And no, I'm not making a salary that I would have in tech. Yes, but you know what? I've lived happy in my job. Every day I come to play, yes. I don't come to work. I get to see incredible people, meet incredible people, create. This is to me the ultimate of success, if you want to think about it. And I'm not talking monetary success, because that's important, but ultimately you spend so many years working in a field, or 2 or 3. In this country, people change very often. In France, we have the mentality where you're going to go and do something and you're going to do this for the rest of your life until you retire. So with that mentality, I wanted to make sure that I was still happy in what I was doing. This gives me joy every day. And I see the joy that it gives to the people that come and learn. I don't know. To me, it's a testament that what we're doing here is a good thing.
Yes. Okay, and I want to shift a little bit to talk about your training and what really allowed you to be working as a leather artisan your entire career with no days off. Not no days off, but no days.
Some days off.
Yes. But you are the only Hermès-trained leather artisan with your own label in the US. And I would love to know, what about your training there do you feel like shaped you as an artisan in the way that you've approached it and been able to create maybe not success in the traditional terms, but really longevity as a metric of success?
Working for a company like Hermès was not only the best in terms of craftsmanship, but the values that they taught me. The values of you don't give up. You work as hard as you can until you get to where you should be. And every stitch has a purpose, which is a way of looking at life as everything you do means something. So I took that, and I took it to heart because I was very young when I started, so they could mold me the way they wanted to. And today, I have to say, this is what I appreciate the most from their training, is quality is key. Doesn't matter what it takes to achieve it. If it's repeating the same steps over and over and over and over again. Very old world apprenticeship program, if you want. We're not going to be satisfied with a piece that's not going to reflect our brand. So do it again. Do it again, do it again. I learned persistence. I learned patience. I also learned to be good to myself because, yeah, it's not easy when you mess up something and it's, okay, now we have to go burn it. The amount of guilt that comes with that. But I had to go through and say, you know what? Everybody makes mistakes. And what I'm taking from this is learning from my mistakes. So it's okay. So I learned a lot of incredible life lessons working for them, which are the lessons that I try to apply to my daily life here in my business, in heirloom, by giving my students that sense of it's okay to mess up. Every opportunity is an opportunity to either change or fix or do better. Life is not over until it's over. You can't make a piece want to be at the end before you even started. Please take the time to slow down. Enjoy every step. Look at it and be like, you know what? I'm proud of myself. Stop for a minute to think. I'm proud of myself. I did something that very few people can do. All these are things that I've learned in my time at Hermès.
Yeah, and now at Heirloom Leathercraft, it's such a different setting, I imagine, than the one that you were trained in terms of you're not working necessarily for production, but it's much more of a teaching model. I'm curious if there's any things any things that you just mentioned that are harder to replicate in this environment versus being like trained by a big fashion house label.
So I want to look at what I've done first with when I started April in Paris, where quality was key. I did not compromise. I did not compromise at any time, even when things were very hard. So I basically took that Hermès principle and said, I don't care what happens in the world, you don't cut corners. Only cut them when you need them on your leather projects. What I'm teaching in my class is basically that 40 some odd years of that way of thinking, putting it into it in the teaching, and trying to give those students that full range of experience within a certain amount of time. So I put this program together where I'm teaching basically 48 days of a program where they create about 16 pieces in 48 days, completely hand-done. So I had to take that 40-some years of experience into this program, put it all in there. And so that shows my life, if you want, into this. So is it difficult to reproduce what I learned? No. I'm taking basically both my time at school plus my experience at Hermès, combined all of it to create this one thing that's, okay, we have production here on one side, and if you are good enough, we can hire you to make these products for us. So we also want to create jobs over time. Or look at these pieces. You can create them yourself on your own if you wish after you graduate. So you have a wide range of situations here that can happen.
I love that. And you talked about it a little bit in the beginning, but how you got pushed into teaching. But was there really a moment where you had been creating for so long and finally felt like, okay, I'm ready to take the leap into actually sharing what I've learned?
I think it was really a combination of a lot of different things. I had been working on my own for many years, and my body was starting to tell me, this is very physical. Maybe you should slow down. So I was trying to work 4 days a week instead of 5. And these students coming in, or future students coming in, asking me if I would teach, started to make me think, well, maybe there's a demand for this. Maybe I'm not the only one doing what I'm doing. Maybe other people want to learn this trade. So one day I was crossing the bridge and I said, okay, I'm going to say that yes to that one student and see how it goes. And it'll be my guinea pig because I've never taught before. Had horrible experience with teachers in France. I was like, okay, let's see if I can do better than they did. So it was a bit of a challenge. Also, I definitely felt like it was time to pass this on. If I, with my years of experience, didn't try to pass on a trade that I love so much, who was going to do it? There are people in Europe, yes, there's schools in Europe. But here, that didn't exist.
Yeah.
There's still no formal schools of leatherwork in this country except us. So I felt like this was the right thing to do.
Yeah, and what's your vision for that? What's your vision for what it would look like to shape the next generation of leather artisans here?
I really want to see how we can repopulate the world with people that appreciate and understand quality. Just because of that, the last 30, 40 years of the other side of the spectrum, a certain generation is really not that familiar with luxury or familiar with handcrafted, because it really died for quite some time.
Yeah, how do you teach that?
It's really interesting. It comes, maybe energy. I don't know. Maybe the energy we put out when people are here. And I think we attract people that want to do this in the first place. But although people come from the street and say, what do you do here? That's a big question. What do you do here? So there is definitely renewed energy and renewed interest in craftsmanship.
Have you seen that a lot as you've started teaching and started growing the school?
It's amazing that we've taught in 14 years 1,000 people. That means there's definitely, we've had people come from all over the world. Australia, England, Brazil, Argentina, anywhere, Canada. It's this one thing that I think very quietly right now is coming back to life, and I'm happy to be a creator of this new era, I hope, of people that appreciate craftsmanship and want to be part of this. It's incredibly gratifying to be doing this.
Yes, and I feel like over the past few years especially, have you noticed that increase even more as everyone's been
Absolutely.
yeah
Yeah.
remote and more removed from everything that is tangible?
I know. I think the pandemic, it started before that. When I had my first student, just as an example, I took him on for 2 hours a week just to see. Within 6 months doing nothing, I had 8 students. Everybody kept walking in, are you teaching, are you teaching? I was like, oh my God, what's happening? That's when I decided after a year and a half, teaching just a couple hours here and there, to open the school. I said there is interest here. But the pandemic definitely created something where people were so stuck inside their home in front of a computer.
Yes.
They really needed a creative outlet. And they begged us to reopen because we had to close the school. And I felt like we were a necessity to reopen for people's sanity.
Totally.
And they were happy. They were so happy to be here. So definitely an incredible renewed interest, change with, maybe because we're in the Bay Area and a lot of tech companies where kids are making money, but they have no creative outlet. So a lot of our students are in that field.
Yeah, that's how this show started. Was I was like, okay, I need to do something more creative. And
Come
I
and
feel
take
like,
a class.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I'm in. Can you talk a little bit about, you've been doing this for so long and also had this such a rigorous level of training from Hermès, but also to, just building your own label. How do you continue to grow as an artisan and learn more? There's this level of perfection that is not really something that you ever reach, but how are you continuing to grow in your own craft?
I think that's the reason I started April in Paris to do custom. I get requests that are like crazy. And every day I come in, I never know what I'm going to get to work on because every day is a different day. If we start a project and it takes us 30, 40 hours, then I know what I'm doing for the next 40 hours. But we have so many crazy requests, and that's what's keeping me interested, engaged, and every project is different, so I have to treat it as, wow, okay, how do I do this? So I'm still learning.
Yeah.
I'm still learning because that's why I wanted to do this, so that I wouldn't get bored in my field. And that's the ultimate for me of being able to express myself through all the pieces that I create.
I've never thought about that, about custom. You are just saying yes to all of these new parameters of what you are creating that kind of constantly expand versus they probably expand the kind of scope of what you might just be designing on your own.
Yeah, so unfortunately right now I don't have a lot of time to design new pieces because we're so busy with our custom work, bespoke. We'll get to that. But there's so many possibilities. There's so many things that could happen.
Yeah.
And that's this endless process of you either create something that you want to create or you make something that somebody wants you to create. I'm never bored. Not enough time in the day to do all the things I still want to do. That's how I keep this interesting. And then being able to pass on the trade and having students here every single day, either asking questions or really avid to learn this trade, that keeps me entertained, that keeps me excited, that makes me meet different people every day. I love it. It couldn't be more complete.
Yeah, and you're also training your daughter. Can you talk about that?
Yes, so my daughter went to college. I'm not going to say her age, but she's been with me for 12 years. She came back from college and said, wow, Mom, what are you doing? She didn't know I had started the school, or really wasn't involved because she was busy doing her thing. I said, well, I'm training. She's like, I want to do this. I'm like, what? I'm not one of those mothers that expected my daughter to take over. Never, ever discussed it. Never thought that was even in the cards at all. I'm like, you want to train, do this? She's like, yeah, I really want to do this. So I put her through the program. She graduated in 10 months instead of 12. It's like she was with me always. She had lived in it. She was born in it. So she already knew so many of the things without me even teaching her anything ever. And as soon as she graduated the program, I had a position open, and I said, hey, it's your chance. Do you want to work here? Take on this position. And now she's fully trained. She's an incredible artist, not because it's my daughter. I'm very capable of seeing the difference between the two, but she can design, she can teach, she can make. Her possibilities are endless. Incredible way to spend my days with her.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful thing to just be able to truly pass the baton and kind of pass it on to your next generation, quite literally.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the ultimate again, of being able to pass on this trade to my daughter. A lot of people, a lot of parents would really want their kids to take over their business. I never thought about it, but I've been very lucky that she's found this interest in it and is thriving in it.
So if someone is maybe curious about leather and is just wanting to learn, what are the foundational skills or the foundational things that you teach at Heirloom?
So one class that we tell people to take if they're not sure if this is something they want to invest in is to take the one-day class. You will learn pattern making, cutting leather, edge finishing, saddle stitching, all of this in one piece. And you get to walk away with a piece you made and get to see if this is something you want to do, if you have the interest or the desire or the capabilities to do this. So that's what I would suggest, is to have the one-day class. And then when you take that one day, then you have all the programs that come with it, or 48 days. So you can enroll in that 48 days program 12 days at a time. if you wish to do so. So we really give people the opportunity to see if this is something they want to do, not just a couple hours here, but a whole day. When you spend 8 hours in here, seeing what everybody else is creating too, because all our classes are mixed, but they're one-on-one, so when you come and do that one day, either my daughter or I will be with you the whole day to teach you all of those fundamental techniques.
Wow, yeah, and see if it lights up your senses in the way it did for you.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so the last section of questions are a quick round, so
Okay.
you don't have to be quick in your answers, but it's really just say the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
So we talk a lot about technology and craft, especially in San Francisco, and how those two are connected. What is something that you've seen in technology that has negatively impacted leather or the artistry of leather?
Because in my little bubble here, I don't really see the negative impact of it. I've actually only seen the positive impact of it.
Love to hear that. Tell us about that.
I try not to look at the negative in general because it's not very productive. But what are the negatives? I really don't think of any. But the positive impact is, one, AI has given you the opportunity to create some things, even when you want to start your own business, to design your website, to do layouts of your store, to create a lot of different graphics that we didn't have the opportunity to do. And you could be an incredible craftsperson. That doesn't mean you're going to be a great graphic designer. So it enables you to cut costs when you start your own business. So that's a positive thing, I think. And you can design things with it if you're not necessarily a designer, but you're a good craftsperson. So it also brings people to the craft. We touched on this for a second, is people that are in the tech industry that are wanting a creative outlet. Where do they go? They come to us. And many other outside sources of people that are doing really incredible objects. So it has a lot of positive. Also combining tech, which is the complete other side of the spectrum of what we do. So they're fast-paced. Everything is boom, 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 deadlines after deadlines, meetings after meetings. You come here and you're like, no phone allowed. Just you, your piece of leather, your instructions, and you are here for yourself. So the tech world is helping develop the craftsmanship for people that have the desire to do so. I think it's actually an incredible combination. Yes. The symbiosis of both is, I never thought I would see that in my lifetime, but it's really the two extremes that are coming together as one.
Yeah, I feel like it's so similar to what we talked about earlier, where we had this era that was really built by the craftsperson pre-technology, and then we swung all the way in the other direction where tech kind of ruled the world and we lost a lot of that. And what does a future look like that has both, and where the extreme advancements of technology actually brings us back, in part because we want to be working with our hands, but also in part because maybe we have more time to be focused on these things. I'm all about that symbiosis, so I love that.
Yeah, and more desire to do so. I think AI is also going to take a lot of jobs away, and people will have to go into trades at some point if they want to be sure that they have a job for the rest of their lives.
Yes.
You know, I've never been without a job.
Yeah, job security.
We cannot take any of this away from us.
Yeah.
Once you learn a trade, you learn a trade. You can take it anywhere, in the woods if you want. I'm teaching methods that are so traditional that you do not need a lot of equipment. You can have a candle and still be stitching. So that's the advantage of this craft, I think, this trade.
Yeah.
In many ways.
And what are you most excited about in the world of leather right now?
I'm excited with the fact that the big companies are trying to come back to more traditional values and more hands-on, more unique, and break back some of those trades that have disappeared. Yeah. So I think there's a renewed energy in this, and more people interested in it. So that's, to me, that's really exciting.
And if someone is maybe not just starting, but maybe someone who has taken classes with you or anywhere and has developed a skill set with leather and is, okay, I want this to be my thing. I want to do this for the rest of my life, or I want to do this on my own. What advice would you have for them?
Don't give up. And follow your instinct. If your instinct is telling this is what you want to do, then you're going to do everything you can to make that happen. I started April in Paris with nothing. I left Hermès and I was like, oh, what do I do now? No job security. I never said never. I used to say, when there's a will, there's a way. And it's absolutely true. You make things happen the way you want them to happen. Just keep at it. Don't give up, because it's too hard. Incredible life lessons.
And we touched on little pieces of this, but what's your dream for the future of leather work?
My dream is to really see many trade schools in this country, to see more workshops that are producing quality, and maybe not one of a kind, even if it's on a smaller scale, but to really retrain people to be working and producing in this country. We've lost that so much. And honestly, I really think this is a necessary part of everyday life. And having been in it my entire life, I just can't imagine being without it. So for me, my goal has always been, okay, now that I'm teaching, I want to show as many people as I can what we do. And then from there, what about we create a workshop and hire the people that we teach to give them a sense of purpose and they can express themselves somehow. So that's, I think, the future of heirloom. That this is where we want to be in a couple years from now, is to be able to grow a little bit, to have more people appreciate and understand this trade.
Yeah, I think it's happening.
We'll make it happen.
Okay, and then last question. If someone is watching or listening to this, what is one thing that you would want them to take away from this?
Don't compromise. Whatever you want in life, you can make it happen. But you don't have to be happy. Be happy in what you do. I think my takeaway is I've spent my whole life finding that happiness within my work. And because we spend so much time with it. So find something that makes you happy.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for having me and for this wonderful conversation.
I know, it was great.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, or review the show. You'll find everything we talked about, including links to today's guest, in the show notes. You can follow the show on socials @TradesShow. And if you have any guest suggestions, requests, or any questions, my contact information is in the show notes. Full episodes during the season are live every other Thursday on Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you listen to or watch your podcasts. Thank you for being here. See you next time.